what I really want to talk about is are these tweets between Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Debbie Mucarsel Powell, and what this is a long history story, debate with Cuba. Ever since we've been involved with them for a long, long time. Since before, uh, the rising of Fidel Castro when he came in and knocked over and appointed one of our guys, and just went from there. Where we, for some reason, I never understand, especially as I've gotten older, why America feels like they need to be the world police, why every injustice needs to be like our personal problem. Um, but Cuba, especially, like, has always been like a sore subject, I feel, for our country. Because I don't know exactly why, and I'm not super well versed on it. It's something I would like to learn a lot more about. But I don't understand why for so many years we've been so obsessed with Cuba, and just I get, we never liked communism, socialism, anything like that. But why we've been so obsessed with making them a democratic nation like all the nations, I've really I have a hard time putting my finger on it. So AOC, uh, you know, there's protests in Cuba right now for Cubans are suffering. Cubans have been suffering for a long time. Now, why that is also very nuanced. They there's been a lot of protests in Cuba at the moment. Protesting the regime and wanting regime change. And so again, the question is being brought up about what should the U.S. intervene? What should we do? What can we do? And media's taken that ball and run with it. Not giving the whole story. Of course, there's protesters, but there's also protesters to the protesters. There's people that are protesting for the Cuban government and people that are protesting against it. It's a very nuanced, but very nuanced argument, but that the media would only like to have it go one way. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put in a tweet, we also must name the U.S. contribution to Cuban suffering, our 6-year-old embargo. I outright reject the Biden administration's defense of the embargo. It is never acceptable for us to use cruelty as a point of leverage against everyday people. So what is she talking about? The embargo on Cuba that we've had for quite a few years. 60 to be, over 60 years. So what's the issue? Well, we so heavily control those waters that we don't allow medicine, we don't allow food, we don't allow necessities into the country, and and if they do, they have to pay, an exorbitant amount, and Cuba suffers for it, and they really do. And so to talk about Cuba without mentioning the embargo, is a bit ridiculous. So you have to think, having trade, you have to think having trade with the United States, and through the United States as and one of the biggest trading superpowers in the world could make or break any country, and especially a country that's so on the brink, on the precipice as Cuba. And we could easily help them. We could help them, and we decide not to. Why? Again, like, I'm not entirely versed on Cuba. Um, uh, not entirely versed on Cuba, so I can't. But we maintain we main Biden maintains the position that the embargo is right for some reason, that we should not be giving them money. Um, uh, I don't understand why, but fine. Um, Another thing I could disagree with Biden on, because I just don't see the point in it. I just don't see the point in hurting a whole country that's not actively hurting us. Speaking of not actively hurting us, this is what Debbie Powell had to say about AOC's tweet. No, this is not correct. It is failed policies of a communist regime that has violated human rights, imprisoned, and killed dissidents. Cuban people, young and old, are risking their lives to rise up. We must listen to them. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Cuban people, young and old, risking their lives to rise up. We must listen to them. Okay, I'm not saying that's not true. We definitely should. We should definitely listen. Because this is a discussion. It's a very nuanced discussion to be had. And this is a discussion that needs to be had, and we need to talk about it. But this next is what I have the issue with. This is a matter of national security. The U.S. must act. Why? Why? How? Why? How? Why? How? How is it a matter of national security? How is it our problem? How is it our issue? Why is it our job to go and protect everybody? Okay, look, I get it. I get it. I don't like seeing injustice all across the world. But how about we stop for a second and think about, oh yeah, parts of Michigan don't even have clean water. And you're sitting here talking about this is a matter of national security. People are dying every single day because they don't have access to health care. But Cuba is a matter of national security. The U.S. must act. I'm surprised she didn't put it in all caps because I feel like that's what she wanted to do. The U.S. must act? Must? I don't like it. I'm not going to sit here and say I support killing your own people, but I also don't support I'm not going to sit here and say I support communism. No, but I will say this. It's none of my business. What I support are American interests for the American people. Getting involved in Cuba, getting more entrenched in Cuba, having our time, letting Cuba live in our head rent-free, which is basically what the embargo is. Like, these people don't bother us. We don't have to be involved. It's like having an ex you just can't let go. Let it go. Let it move on. Let her be happy. Stop acting like that. Stop being so petty. Ugh. Okay.